It happens to rich. It happens to poor.
I always just felt like, why do just people stop? Like, it was always a matter of like, they just don't want to stop.
Because a lot of times with those that are in their addiction, they feel invincible. They feel like, I've been doing this for all this time and I haven't passed yet, so I'm going to be fine.
Yes, my son's name was Sean.
My son's name was Eric.
So Walt was my fiance.
My brother's name was William Ebert.
My son, Matthew.
Earl Van Blarkham.
Hi, my name is Dory Ann. My son's name was Eric. He was 25 years old when he died of fentanyl overdose. He was a great kid, loved sports, loved music, had a ton of friends, and just was the light of my life. As far as I know, Eric was using at about age 19. His first trip to rehab was when he was 20. And from that point forward, for 6 years, he continued in and out of addiction. Addiction affected my family in a lot of the negative ways. When Eric was using, it created a lot of family conflict. Everybody handles things differently, and some people don't want to acknowledge what's happening, and other people jump on board to help, and it becomes a big tearing apart of the family unit. After Eric passed, it continued that way. We still have a family that's divided because of different things that were said and done during addiction that may or may not necessarily have been true, and it has greatly impacted my life. I love you. I miss you. I'm sorry that I couldn't do more, and I love you forever.
Hi, my name is Mary Beth Sahaki. My loved one was my son, Matthew. He was 37 years old when he passed away from an Oxycontin overdose. He was a brilliant guy, a very loving man, very giving man. He loved his dogs. He lived at the beach, and he owned his own business. He was a car mechanic. He was probably in his 30s or early 30s. He was a mechanic. Like I said, he owned his own business. And he was lifting an engine out of a car one day, and he hurt his back. He went to the emergency room, and, they didn't even do an x-ray to see if there was any damage. No, didn't even order an MRI. What they did do was give him a script for Oxycontin, never warning him of the addictiveness of the drug. I never realized how powerful the pills could be. I always thought, I was a nurse, and I always thought, well, he's afraid of needles, so he's probably not going to die because, if you don't shoot heroin, you don't die. And I look back now and I realize how foolish it was. Oh God, Matt, I'm so proud of how you tried so hard to fight against such a broken system. And I just would give you the biggest hug ever, and I don't think I'd ever stop hugging you because I have missed you for so, so long. I always thought he could stop, and that was one of our biggest battles. I'd say, my goodness, Matt, just stop taking the pills. I never knew how powerful and how unbelievably brain changing these opioids truly are. And, I look now, hindsight is the greatest gift, but you don't have it when you need it. I look back now and I would have done so many things differently, realizing now that it was a disease, that it wasn't something that he wanted to do. He didn't want to live that way. He didn't want to be that way. He didn't want to lose his business or his home. I was never ashamed of him. And our last conversation was, I told him how much I loved him. And he said, I love you too, Mom.
Hi, my name is Sean Dawson. My brother's name was William Ebert. He was 30 years old when he passed away, leaving behind a son named Reese. He was young when he started using. It started out as recreational, drinking and marijuana use, probably around age 14, and it just progressed from there. Addiction has affected my family in numerous ways, numerous family members. Before his passing, I had 5 years sober, and his passing ended up causing me to relapse, and now I have almost 2 years sober in 12 days. Um, it has affected us in every way, shape, or form. There's not a day that goes by that we don't think about him and wish he was here with us, though. Being someone who came from struggles with addiction myself, after my brother's passing, it really changed a lot of perspective for me. That we miss him, we wish he was here, and I wish that there was more I could have did to make sure he was still here. People need to be more kind and understanding of people with issues with addiction, that we don't know what's going on in someone's life and what may be causing them to seek this addiction.
My name's Nicole Tweedy, and this is Chloe Phipps. So Walt was my fiance, and he passed away in November 15th of 2022. It's Chloe's dad. He was a great person, biggest heart, never judged anyone, and just always saw the good in everyone. He's so missed, and we miss him a lot. What do you want to say about that?
And he was a really kind person, and he was always such a good dad ever since I was born. And he was so sweet and kind, and he was so playful and joyful. And whenever mom couldn't play with me, when she couldn't, even if he was playing an important game, because he did like to play games, and if he was playing a game, he would say, sure, I'll play with you, and he would play with me.
So when he started using opiates, which is what he passed from, he was 28, but before that he was using other things, but 28 is when he started using opiates. Before, it was just like, I could just describe it as an emotional roller coaster. It's just a lot of ups and downs, and he would get clean, and I would have faith that this was going to be it. He was going to stop, and then he would use again, and then it was just like right back down to feeling defeated and like, what can I do to help him? And finally he went to Florida. He got a scholarship to go to a treatment facility in Florida, and 4 months after he was there, he was like, I'm tired of living here with these men, so you need to come here or I'm coming home. So I was like, that's not enough time. So Chloe and I moved there, and he did great. I mean, he was thriving in Florida. He was the person that I fell in love with again. And we came home because of our older kids, and when we came home, everything was great. And 4 months later, he relapsed, and I found him. I would tell him, that I love him, and, he was the best, and he is the best person, best dad, best partner in life. And I love him with all my heart, which he knew that. What would you tell Daddy if he was here?
That you would be the best daddy I could ever imagine, and you're so sweet, and I love you so much, and even if you go somewhere else and I never see you again, I still love you forever in my heart.
Hi, my name is Rebecca. I am from Newark, Delaware, born and raised. My son's name was Sean. He passed away shortly after his 32nd birthday. A little bit different. It was still a drug, but my son passed away from alcohol at the age of 32. He was compassionate, loving, caring. He helped those who were struggling, even though he was struggling himself. And it was sudden. It was very sudden. To my knowledge, it was probably much younger, but to my knowledge, probably Sean was I would say maybe 17 when I started smelling the alcohol. I didn't really know it was a full-blown addiction until probably in his 20s. It was a struggle. I didn't know enough about alcohol. I thought my son could just stop. I was mad at him for not just stopping. Every time we were able to get him into rehab and he came back out of rehab, and he would go for a while and not drink, and then the drinking would start back up again. As uneducated as I was at that time, I was mad. I thought that it was a disease that you could just stop. It affected his relationship with his cousins, his family, because he began to distance himself from the family. It affected every aspect of his life. The smile no longer reached his eyes. And although he was a functioning alcoholic, Sean wasn't always present in the moment. I would apologize to him. If I would have known what I know now, that alcohol is indeed a drug that will kill you, I would have known that he couldn't just stop. I would have known that it was a drug. If I would have been more, I would like to have known if I would have educated myself more, if I would have been more educated, I could have helped him more. So I would just say to him, I will always be proud to be your mom, no matter what. You never disappointed me. I love you, and I wish I would have done better. Alcohol is indeed a drug. It is normalized in the States. It's readily available. It's legalized. It is a deadly killer. It's one of two drugs that is the only drug that you can die through, besides benzos, through withdrawal. The only one. Don't educate yourself. Educate yourself on the dangers of alcohol. Speak to your kids, and it's a choice. Just make it an educated choice.
My name is Brittany Dundas from Milford, Delaware. So he and I were dating. It was almost about 2 years we had been dating. His name was Earl Van Blarkham. He started the Hope on Deck. He went by RJ, so if I say RJ, that's what I mean. Yeah, talk about RJ. Well, when we first started dating, he was clean for a while, and I really didn't know anything about his addiction. After a while, he did relapse, and it changed everything about him. I didn't even recognize him. I felt like I couldn't talk to him without it just turning into an argument somehow. He never laughed. He never smiled. He was just so serious, and it just changed everything. About our relationship, about him. He was a totally different person. I found out I was pregnant the day after he passed. So just that we have a little girl, and she's really sweet. She never cries, and she's a happy baby. And just how our life has changed. We have a new home, we have a new job. Yeah, just everything that's different. How much we love him and miss him, and I just wish he was here. I see him and our little girl every day. She has his eyes, which is great. I love seeing his eyes in her. But just everything about our baby, really. Yeah, I do. I never really, I guess, understood it before. I just didn't know much about it. I probably wouldn't have been able to pick out, aside from the very obvious, if someone's not fully conscious or something. But yeah, I definitely, I watched him struggle with it. He went through his periods, and yeah, it's a hard battle, and I saw how much he fought it, and I always just felt why do just people stop? It was always a matter of they just don't want to stop, is kind of how I saw it. But I know how bad he wanted to stop, and I know how bad he wanted to just never, pick it up again. But I saw that struggle, how hard it was. So I understand it a little bit better. And that you don't think people know or notice, but they do. It changes everything about your personality, the way you look, the way you act. So, yeah.
My name is Dawn Sheehan. I'm known by Ma Van. I'm from Delaware, born and raised. So my son, Earl Van, started Hope on Deck in 2018 after he did a long stint in a rehab and got clean. And he decided that he wanted to make it his mission to help others. And so he started Hope on Deck and went around the country saving lives, showing love and compassion, and doing interventions. So Earl was my oldest boy. He struggled with addiction for a very long time. In 2017, he lost his uncle, my brother, and shortly thereafter, he relapsed. He decided he wanted to get clean. He went to Florida. He did 3 months at a rehab, came back, went to a meeting, and at that day decided he wanted to give back to the community and save others that were struggling in their addiction. So he got his certification in interventions and started Hope on Deck. And so he would do basically the same things we do now, collect clothing, go give it to the homeless, work with those in sober living and those trying to get into rehab and help facilitate that. So he's credited with saving a lot of lives. He was very young. He was about 15. I did not find out until he was about 16. So he had been in his struggle for a while, but he was my firstborn, and I just kind of thought at first it was typical, teen behavior, rebellion. And so it wasn't until he was about 16 that I found out. And then he struggled off and on for years. It was like a roller coaster. He would do well. He would relapse. He wouldn't do well. He would do well. So every time he went on his roller coaster, the whole family went on their roller coaster. So, like I said, in 2017, he lost his uncle and he got clean. COVID hit and he did suffer with mental illness, just like most addicts do, or very many of them do. And he did relapse. The years between when COVID started and when he passed, which was just this December 4th, 2023, it was, long periods of sobriety, relapse, long periods of sobriety, off and on. But last year he was here for this project and he stood in that room sober, clean, and 3 weeks later we lost him. So before his passing, everybody suffers when a loved one is struggling. For me, as his mom, it's probably the same as most other parents. You don't sleep, you don't eat, you ride that roller coaster with them. So I always say you're only as happy as your happiest child. And he was a lot of times sad in his struggle. When he was sad, I was sad because I was struggling with his addiction just in a different way. So, the laying in bed at night, wondering where he was, if he was dead or alive. When was I going to get that phone call? Was I going to get it that night? Was I going to get it 2 weeks from now? Because I knew in my mind that was a strong possibility when he was in his addiction. So I tried to mentally prepare myself for it as best that I could. But he said he had long periods of sobriety when he was doing very well. But you always are, even when he was in his sobriety, somewhere in the back of my mom brain, I thought this could change, because I know how addiction is cunning and it just sometimes will pull you back in. So it really is tough. It's tough on the whole family. His siblings didn't get the attention they needed because I was so focused when he was not doing well on saving him. So if I had something planned with one of my other children and he was doing poorly that day, I would have to cancel. So it really does. It's all consuming. It truly is all consuming because you just can't get your head in a good spot to go to work, to function. So, but I love him, and that I'm glad that he's not struggling and happy in heaven. If he was here and he was alive, I would tell him how proud I was of him that he continued his path of sobriety. But I don't hold any blame on him because I'm all familiar with addiction, and I know that he did not choose that path. No addict chooses that path. And relapse happens. For him, I know that he was struggling with a few issues, and that's a coping mechanism for him. It always has been. Do I think that day when he decided to use again after a period of sobriety, I did not think that he thought in his head that it was going to take them, because a lot of times with those that are in their addiction, they feel invincible. They feel like, I've been doing this for all this time and I haven't passed yet, so I'm going to be fine, and the reality of it is today, we're dealing with a whole different beast with fentanyl. And so it's completely different than, years and years ago when there was real heroin and not fentanyl in it. So that's a real reason why we're losing so many. And and addiction is cunning. It'll grab a hold of somebody out of the blue after even a long period of sobriety. I think I've always looked at addiction differently because my parents were both addicts. My dad struggled for years with a heroin addiction. My mom was an alcoholic. When my dad passed of COVID, he had 28 years of sobriety under his belt. But I remember as a little girl and even as a teenager, he was still struggling. My mom with her addiction. So I understood addiction pretty well before my son became an addict. My brother was also an addict. I lost my brother in February of 2017. Again, after he had a long period of sobriety, he relapsed. Sadly, I found him that time, which was devastating. And I made my son promise me that he would never make me go through that. And I think when he made that promise to me, he truly intended on keeping that promise. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But, I've always known about addiction from the day I was born. Basically I had the parents, a lot of my loved ones, my aunts, my uncles, there is truly a genetic factor in addiction. And I always say that I dodged the bullet of addiction because my one brother and I have zero addiction issues. And my brother just happened to not be able to dodge it. So yes, so I can speak on not only my son's addiction and how I would kind of get clues that he was using again. And I think it's pretty similar, although I can't speak for everybody. He would become a little bit withdrawn from me, where normally our relationship was super close. He would stop coming home for dinner. He would come late after I would go to bed. His demeanor changed. So he was always super nice to me. Him and I were like this, like he was a mama's boy and he would be the first one to tell you he was a mama's boy. So he put me really high on a pedestal. And was always nothing but kind to me. So when he started messing up again, one of the first things that I knew was he would start getting moody. He would get withdrawn. And then there's the physical things that I would see. The look in his eyes, the slurred speech, the nodding out, all those things that are typical of doing that type of drug. He would exhibit those and right away I would know. But the first clue is always the distancing. When he started distancing himself and making excuses why he couldn't come home, that was the first red flag for me. I think that so often now, and part of what Hope on Deck truly tries to do is destigmatize the disease of addiction. I would like to let them know you are not alone in your addiction and you did not cause this. This is a medical condition, and there is hope for recovery. It's a journey into sobriety. You just have to be able to ask out for help, and you need a lot of support. So reach out for help. Family members, friends, you can always contact us at Hope on Deck. We would be happy to facilitate treatment for you. We would be happy to do whatever we can to get you on the right path to the road of recovery. But know that you're not alone. You're not alone. There are so many out there struggling, and if you don't ask for help, the chances of you getting help are a lot slimmer. So please reach out. It's important. Your family wants you to be around. Your family does not want to have to come to a place like this, Empty Shoe Project, and see one of your pairs of shoes sitting next to your picture, to be able to, remember you. So, you're loved. So I would say that addiction has been proven many, many, many years ago that it is truly a disease. So a lot of times the public may think that it's a moral failing on the addict's part, or they were raised by parents who weren't so good, or they're bad people, or a lot of people think that only happens to certain race, creed, and colors. It happens across the board to every race, creed, and color. It happens to rich. It happens to poor. So by saying that, if you have that mindset that it only happens to those type of people, you are wrong. You are so wrong. Nobody chooses to be an addict. And once they become an addict, it is a struggle for them to get clean. And instead of bashing them or, shaming them, what we really need to do if we're going to save lives is we need to show them support, get them into recovery, and, think of them as if you would think of anybody else. If somebody who had cancer, if somebody had diabetes, those are all diseases too. So, think of it like that. They're sick. They're not well. They're not that they're not bad. They're not an addict because they're a bad person. Because I will tell you, I have met during my outreach missions and through years and years of doing what I do with Hope on Deck, which is just trying to show those struggling loving compassion, that the addicts that I have met, and I'm talking thousands, have been some of the kindest, nicest, most genuine, empathetic, compassionate people that I've ever met. And I've met politicians. I've met clergy. I've met a lot of people in my life, and I will say that they truly have some of the best hearts. They're good people. We would love to save everybody that is struggling. We are a small nonprofit based in Delaware. We work Maryland, Delaware, and PA. And our mission is to keep educating people so that they know that the stigma against those that are struggling, it's literally killing people because they are embarrassed already. So we need to educate them of truly what addiction is. We want to continue to remember those that we've lost and to show that they were so much more than their addiction. They were good people. They had great families. They were truly loved. But one of the biggest things that we do is we collect items that go out to the public, mostly to rehabs, sober living homes, detox centers, that type of thing. And we will collect clothing and shoes and coats and such, and we will disperse that among all those places, because oftentimes you may have somebody that comes into treatment, and when they come into treatment, they are maybe coming off the streets, or they're coming from couch surfing possibly, and they don't even have a coat. Some of them don't have anything but the clothes they came in there with. So we really want to show them some love and compassion to show them that they are so worthy. So we do make sure that we take all those items to the various places and that they will have them. We also do our best when somebody does reach out to help facilitate treatment. We know in this community alone, we know a lot of the treatment centers, who they take. We can find out what their availability is for someone if they reach out. So our mission is just to save as many people as we can. And the ones that we can't save, we want to make sure we remember them. And also their loved ones, because their loved ones need support. So we want the loved ones of those lost to know that they are not alone in their grief. This epidemic has taken far too many. And there's a lot of people just like myself that has lost a loved one or several even. And it's not easy. The journey of grief, especially when they're young, especially when they die of something like an overdose, and it's unexpected, it kind of hits it really hard. Hope on Deck, you can reach us many different ways. We have a website, hopeondeck.org. You can reach out through that website and we will respond, and we will do everything that we can to get help for you. Also, if you're interested in joining our mission of showing love, compassion, and hope to those struggling, those in recovery, and their loved ones, there's some information on that page as well. We do outreach missions. We do a lot of fun things in the neighborhood, in the community as well, like have Santa with the kids who have lost their parent to addiction. We give them gifts. So, if you look on our webpage, you're going to see a gamut of things that we do. And we would love to have everybody involved because it's important. It's important. Our mission is very important. And we hope to just keep building on this mission, helping as many as we can.
I would want the world to know.
The public may think that it's a moral failing on the addict's part, or they were raised by, parents who weren't so good, or they're bad people, or a lot of people think that only happens to certain race, creed, and colors. It happens across the board to every race, creed, and color.
That it covers every economic group, every race, every creed.
So I would say that addiction has been proven many, many, many years ago that it is truly a disease.
It's gotten worse. I mean, it's 10 times worse with what they're putting in it. I do look at it like a disease now. Years ago, when I first got involved with somebody who was in addiction, I was one of them people that was like, if you can't get clean, then you don't love me, you don't care about your family.
I always thought he could stop. And that was one of our biggest battles. I'd say, my goodness, Matt, just stop taking the pills. I never knew how powerful and how unbelievably brain changing these opioids truly are.
People need to be more kind and understanding of people with issues with addiction.
Working in recovery and talking to so many people in addiction, it's opened my eyes to it is a disease.
Just, you think it's a personal choice that you're making for yourself, but it affects everybody around you. It affects your partner, your parents, your kids. It affects everybody around you.
That there is help out there and you are worth it. And, just reach out. Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel embarrassed. It takes, one day at a time. But, each day is another day, and you can do it if you really want it.
That we don't know what's going on in someone's life and what may be causing them to seek this addiction.
It doesn't discriminate, and it can happen to you. So educate yourself and educate your families, because this disease it's terrible, and we need to get a better control of it here in the United States.